What's going on, guys? We're back. Week 6 power rankings. A little bit later than I normally do them. Every now and then I get busy with my training schedule and stuff like that recently, and sometimes I pump them out Thursday before the game. Push comes to shove, I'm not scared putting them out Friday if I have to. I mean, it is just Thursday night football. These Thursday night football games have been bad. Not the biggest deal in the world if I don't get it out. But I've been trying to just make sure I get them out. I almost stayed up super late last night, pump it out for you guys. But, we'll get right into the power rankings this week. Some stagnation in certain spots because I think we're starting to see kind of where teams are kind of at right now. However, I do think there's some teams that, based off some theories that I established early on, kind of wavered from a little bit. That I think a few teams can make runs back to possibly being very competitive, depending on some specific things happening rather consistently. But there is some mix-up, and in our NFL chat, some of the guys in the group chat are like, "Oh, well, I'm sure you're just probably making power rankings based off record." Go back, do your homework, look at my power rankings. I'm not purely making them based off record. You're going to see in a couple different instances that I am not making these solely off record, and obviously this is just my opinion. Record does matter. It's part of the formula. But also what weighs heavy is to for me, is when certain teams are close and have a relative ranking position in my power rankings, how well closer teams match up. And if I think that matchup is bad for another team, if I think that right now that team could beat that other team, that weighs heavily into mine too. So a little bit of shakeups. And remember, this is based off what I've seen up to this point. This is in constant flux. That's what the power rankings are. What am I seeing right now? What have I seen recently? And then you make, a rough projection on where you think this team could head in the future. You get new information, you change it. So if you don't like my power rankings, could be in butthurt. Fucking suck it. Carolina Panthers are number 32. So the Panthers are an absolute disappointment. Obviously, they fired Matt Rule. Honestly, I think they should probably fire David Tepper because things haven't been going well for this team. When you look at this roster on paper, they're in the bottom of most of the statistics. Baker Mayfield just not confident, not playing well. He's probably never bouncing back from his early rookie and second year form. They're not getting the most out of Christian McCaffrey. A lot of that is because the offensive line's bad, and I personally think they don't scheme things right for him to succeed. They should probably be throwing him the ball more, lining him up outside in the slot more. I'm not seeing as much as that. Defensively, you look at this team on paper, they got some really good young pieces. Personally, if I'm a coach, I'm probably going to try to coach this team. You should be lining up to coach some of the young talent on this team. I mean, if you're not like a David Tepper, now might be the time to move on because the pick next year for this team, if they finish in last place, is C.J. Stroud from Ohio State. So you're getting yourself a new quarterback. I would love to coach this team with some of the defensive personnel and some of the offensive weapons. Build up the offensive line, get yourself a new quarterback. This team is absolutely dog shit. Carolina, 32. Houston Texans sitting at 1-3-1. The Houston Texans still around, where I thought the Houston Texans would be this season. They're a really odd team because in all the statistical categories, they're dead, like in the dead area last, 29, 30th, 31st, shit like that. They're just absolutely brutal. But I do still like some of the young pieces that are on this team. Obviously, when you're a bad team, you're always usually accruing good young talent. They got a win last week against Jacksonville at 13-6. It wasn't Jacksonville's best performance. However, I do think that Jacksonville is a good football team. And I do feel like this game was kind of a blip. We'll get to that later. Davis Mills, he's okay. Damian Pierce is showing to play really, really well. Still like some of their young weapons on the team defensively. Again, like I've always said, they have this mix of not having depth, too old in the long in the tooth players, been playing for a while, but I do like some good young people, some of the good young players. Their young rookie cornerback Derek Stingley played well and got an interception. But this team's just lacks the depth and continuity that you need to get wins in this league. Not enough juice through the air. They'll probably just, still be a competitive ball club, run the football a lot, and try their best to play defense. So, Houston at 31. The Washington Commanders. So this is one of those teams that everyone thought was going to be absolutely fantastic this year. I thought they could definitely be interesting because Carson Wentz might be the most inconsistent player to ever play in the NFL. Probably him and Cam Newton, but for different reasons. Like Cam Newton was usually inconsistent year from year. Like one year he'd play really well or good, and then one year he'd play really bad. But you just really never know what Carson Wentz is going to show up, what he's going to give you. I know he's in the double digits in touchdowns, but he's also thrown some bad interceptions. Hasn't been that accurate. Made a lot of bad decisions with the football. This team's got injuries. They could be in some games because they're pretty explosive. They got a lot of young explosive playmakers and stuff like that. But this team just schematically is not really all that good. They could put up a lot of yards, so they're just not efficient in the red zone. They're not efficient on third down. Honestly, I think they need to move on from their head coach out there throwing players under the bus. This Washington team, just hot garbage right now. Pittsburgh Steelers. So Pittsburgh, obviously, as everyone knows, is always a tough out when you play against Pittsburgh. They're still playing relatively pretty good defense, even though they got blown out by the Bills. Mike Tomlin, everyone's like, trash Mike Tomlin, toss Mike Tomlin. I don't agree with that. He's still one of the best coaches in the league, and I think he's only in his 40s. I don't see this team getting on track. I like the fact that they put Kenny Pickett in there. This team is just bad. One thing that bodes well for them is Kenny Pickett has immediately increased their yards per attempt. He's going to take more shots down the field. He's thrown some interceptions. A lot of them aren't his fault, but just his skills mightily just increase the offense. It won't be enough, but increases the offense, or maybe they could be, maybe a little bit better going forward. Maybe try to get some wins. But the offensive line is just garbage. They can't get a push up front, can't run the ball, so it's gonna be tough. It will be tough sledding no matter what for this offense. The defense at times will keep them in, but again, defense as we see in this league, even for the best defenses, there's a lot of variance in today's NFL. Now the game is just way more vertical. Quarterbacks know how to attack all the different coverages. Today's league is definitely more of a full field attacking league. It's not fucking stop the other team's running attack and you win the football game. Those days are long gone. So Pittsburgh, they'll be floating around the bottom here. Interested to see too. Hopefully I like Kenny Pickett. Hopefully he plays well. Enough for them to probably want to keep him. I mean, they spend first-round money on him, I think, right? Or is he a second-rounder? Not sure. Doesn't matter. The Pittsburgh Steelers are just really bad right now. So, Pittsburgh at 29. Detroit Lions, again, another team that was this is one of those teams that was fun in the beginning. And, they could score a lot of points. Not efficiently. They get a lot of chunk plays, but they got smashed by New England 29-0. I like Dan Campbell. He's cool. Probably not the long-term solution there. This defense is one of the worst defenses in the league. A lot of young players playing on it. Happy for my boy Jeff Okudah. Played a lot better this year, but, he's only one man. This last game out, this team was absolutely atrocious. They accrued almost 100 yards of penalties, and they went for it like 6 or 7 times. On fourth down, didn't complete it. They just made a lot of mistakes. It's fun with some of the weapons they got offensively, but sadly this offensive line is just getting wasted on a team that's, Goff's playing better, but just he's not good enough to get them where they need to get. And it's hard when you score that many points, you still lose the football games because like the defense, they can't even get middle of the pack defense from this team. So Detroit's Bonzito. Detroit 29. Chicago Bears 2-3, up 1 to 27. The Chicago Bears are to me an interesting football team. I'm not one of these people that's placing Chicago super high, but they've been ultra competitive in my opinion throughout these first handful of games. They did lose to Minnesota, but in a pretty valiant effort, lost to Minnesota. They just couldn't really contain what Minnesota has going on offensively. But this is one of Justin Fields' best games. He had a well over 100 passer rating. He graded out, I think, like an 86 in this game. I don't think he got in the end zone, but he had over 200 yards, added some rushes in. I do think he's ultra talented, and I just think he's in a bad situation. Defense plays tough, but just not enough athleticism and talent to, keep the high-powered offenses from scoring on them. Offensive line's bad. They're resorting to just trying to efficiently run. This team has no weapons. Mooney's not good enough to put them over the top. Cole Kmet kind of isn't playing as well as he used to play. So I feel bad for Fields, but I definitely think he's their quarterback of the future. If not, for whatever reason, they don't sign him again, I'd like to see, a good team scoop him up and see what he could do. Great arm talent, can run. Made some pretty good decisions last week with the football and a valiant losing effort. So Chicago 27. 26, the Atlanta Falcons. So I see a lot of people push the Atlanta Falcons up higher than I think they should be. This team's fun offensively, and they do a lot of different things with the ball, spreading around, stuff like that. But I'm not high on this Atlanta Falcons team. I've seen places have them as high as like 20 or 22. I have them at 26. They played tough with Tampa Bay. But you got to remember, Tampa Bay has a whole bunch of injuries. They fell behind against Tampa 21-0 and then stopped Tampa from scoring. And I think that a lot of that was Tampa was kind of like, okay, we're up 21, let's just coast and win. But this offense, like I've been saying against the beginning, has some strikeability with some of their playmakers. I'd like to see them get the ball to their tight end a little bit more, and they have had a good push up front to run the football. But just the offense is not efficient enough and consistent enough to go out here and beat a lot of these good teams on a regular basis. I know they're sitting at 2-3. A lot of people thought that they wouldn't be winning a lot of games this year. 2-3 out the start gate. You can't be that upset if you're the Atlanta Falcons, but just defensively, this team is just so bad. I just can't see them. I still see them being like a maybe 5-6 team, 6-7 wins tops, in a division that's not really all that competitive right now besides the teams at the top. You got to remember, Tampa has accrued some of the most injuries of any team, and they're still out here playing good football. Imagine if they get fully healthy. So, stout effort by Atlanta, but I still think they're one of the worst teams in the league. Just not consistent enough to, edge out these good teams. So, Atlanta at 26. Up 3, though. Down 10. And it pains me to do it because, this team, they're 2-3, but they're just they might be the worst, in terms of actually playing, they might be the worst 2-3 team. I do not know what's going on with this team. I don't know if it's just not the right personnel together. The coaching staff, they definitely make a lot of odd playing calls, in my opinion, bad decisions with the football. They just lost their team they shouldn't lose to in Indianapolis in a 12-9 overtime loss. There's no fucking touchdown scores, I don't think. I didn't even watch the whole game. I fucking shut it off. But Russ, it's just been rough for Russ. You had a fucking 55 quarterback rating. This team is absolutely atrocious in the red zone, third down play calling. Nathaniel Hackett, a lot of people want to fire it already. One bright spot of this team is their defense right now is playing like a top 10 defense. At 2-3, if this team can't get their offensive woes together, just play some with the players you got. You just got to play some fucking efficient football. Dumb it down if you have to. Just get the ball in your playmaker's hand. They still got solid running backs. They still got really good offensive weapons through the air. A lot of this, I think there's probably a level of disconnect between quarterback, coach, play calling type stuff. There's just no excuse to make some of the blunders that this team's made, some of the decisions they made. There's a lot of really good teams, in my opinion, right now that are making odd fucking play calls when the game's on the line and it's fucking biting their ass. And I think the Denver Broncos are one of them. This is one of their teams where they're sitting at a very low position right now, but I think that if they can get everything together, they could easily vault themselves back up into the top 15 in a couple weeks. But right now, solely based off how they've played, I have to put them this low. I just have to. There's other teams that have played better than this team, even though they're not as talented as this team on paper. Denver at 25. 24, speaking of the Colts, Colts are a similar team. Yeah, they're 2-2-1, but this Colts team just not really explosive in my opinion. I think Frank Reich needs to go. I just don't think this team's all that great. I mean, on paper, they got a solid roster. They have a solid offensive line. You have one of the best running backs in the league, albeit he's injured. I know a lot of people have ranked this team higher, but I just see this team meandering back and forth to be like a sub 500, close to 500 team. I guess technically they're back to 500, but this offense is just fucking struggling. Defense is solid. This offense is just absolutely struggling. A 60-something passing rating from Matt Ryan. This team's only averaged like fucking 15 points per game. So I think because the roster is solid, and since the roster is solid, but since the offense is not clicking, this team, just like Denver, they don't have it together offensively. They're not fucking scoring points. Their best player on offense has been injured. So right now, this team's not playing well. It's not a good football team. So Colts at 24. Up to 23 is the Seattle Seahawks, sit at 2-3. So a big part of the reason why I've upped Seattle up, and I've seen a lot of places that have Seattle higher than me. I've seen places where Seattle's like in the teens, but Seattle for me will be sitting at 23. They lost to New Orleans, which was a ridiculous game, and we'll get to New Orleans. Because we'll learn a lot of the reason why the New Orleans is a middle-ish pack team is because they have one of the better rosters in the league. But I thought there was an odd level of variance that we'll get into, and it's shown time and time again the past 7 years that, it's been inconsistent in variance, so we'll get to it with the Saints. But I don't think the Saints outplayed this football team. I think this team ideally should be 3-2. Geno Smith, top 5 in total quarterback grade. I don't know what it is at the second, but heading into last week, his grade was an 85. He's been playing fucking fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. They're doing a good job balancing this offense, and he's just dialing up great play action, pass plays, accurate, throwing the football down the field, to just getting his ball to his weapons. Right now, his passer rating is like, against the Saints was like 140 or some shit. I don't know what his overall passing rating is, but his grade is great. He threw 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions against the Chiefs. This team's Achilles heel, obviously, is their defense, but they're getting just enough out of their offensive line to where they are being consistent on offense and getting great quarterback play from a guy that's been in the league for a while, seasoned vet. Every now and then you see a guy, it kind of reminds me of Teddy Bridgewater, even though Teddy Bridgewater's probably played a lot more games. And Teddy Bridgewater actually really has really good, really efficient stats in this league. This team's not a world beater by any means, but they're playing scrappy on both sides of the football. I just don't think they have a lot of talent on defense. But personally, I think this team should be 3-2. So for me, Seattle will sit at 23 at 2-3 up 2. There they are, the New York Jets. +1 up to 22, sitting at 3-2. Now, this is another team. This is probably one of the weaker 3-2 teams. But I love this Jets team. Love the young talent on both sides of the ball. Offensive line's playing good, even without Mekhi back there. They can pass block, they can run block with their young running backs. They have a deep core of wide receivers. I would like to see them down the road get a better tight end as a safety valve for their young quarterback. But man, this team plays tough on both sides of the ball. They play with a lot of energy. The young quarterback has a really explosive arm. You can throw the ball over the lot. I've seen places have them in the teens. I need to see them up a little more. They did blow out Miami 40-17, but Miami's playing their third or fourth string quarterback. But the rookie's back, and he's playing well. Breece Hall had like 200 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown last week. I really think the direction that the Jets are going in is fantastic. Hopefully Mekhi Becton comes back and gets to what we think he could be. With this young quarterback, these young players, this team has the projection of being explosive and talented on both sides of the football. Jets at 22. Up 1, kind of by default. Not so much because they won the game. It's just because I think the teams behind them, their rosters aren't as deep and as good as this team. Bengals got to play this team. The New Orleans Saints up 1 to 21. They did get a win over the weekend. And I think a lot of that win is it's hard. This team's a double-edged sword for me right now. Well, double-edged sword, but there's two sides to the coin for this team. I think last week's win was variance. Everyone's like freaks out when Taysom Hill gets carries and shit and does a lot. And like, yeah, it's impressive. Taysom Hill's a fantastic football player. But we've seen time and time again that for the most part, except for outside of a half a season, the Taysom Hill experience is not something that's overtly sustainable for you to build a team around and win a shit ton of football games or like make a postseason run or none of that. You'll have games where they put Taysom Hill in position to win and his football IQ and his physicality takes over, and he can do a lot. He can throw a football a little bit in certain situations. He could really run the football. He's like a faster version of Tim Tebow. But, they had a lot of good play calls last week at the right times. They got the best out of all the wide array of skill sets that Taysom Hill can do. This isn't something that's going to be sustainable. But on top of that, the offense of the roster is pretty good. I think the defense isn't playing as great as they could be, but their front seven's good. Their DBs are good. They have a solid offensive line, a bunch of different skill positions. Again, I knew this team would go downhill once Drew Brees left. Now Drew Brees' arm was kind of cooked at the end, but this is one of those teams that's just a high-level quarterback away from being a playoff team. But the roster alone, where they're at right now, sitting at 2-3. They kind of got bumped up one kind of by proxy, even though I seen positives and negatives. So, Saints at 21. Staying put, and this is what I talked about earlier, teams I think that could rise. Staying put at 20. What I said in the beginning of the year about this team still stands. I don't think they're going to be a really, really good team at the end of the year or be able to compete in the playoffs because they, at the end of the year, could possibly have like a bottom 3 defense. This defense is absolutely garbage. They got 2 good edge rushers, and that's about it. A couple average guys, but this team will always get scored on. But where they could turn it around, sitting at, and I apologize. I think, are they 1-3 or are they 2-3? I think I might have not have wrote that down right. They might be 2-3. Let me look. No, they are 1-4. So I did put that down right, but this Raiders team, the reason why I think they could probably continue to make noise because it looks like they're starting to click a little bit on offense. And I said the only way the Raiders cannot finish last in their division is if they have an absolute ridiculous offense. If their offense consistently goes out and finishes in that top 10 range, then this team could probably do just enough defensively because they do have a lot of athletic players on defense to, be a competitive football team. Right now, I got to leave them staying put. Let's see if this offense continue to keep clicking. And I bag on a lot of linebackers in this league about how, and I talk about how hard it is to play linebacker. For all you out there that don't believe me about how hard it is to play linebacker and all the things that are asked of you and how inefficient most linebackers are, just how inefficient a lot of corners are, go back, watch this game with the Chiefs. Not to hate on him, not that he's listening. He's famous. He's probably not paying attention. Go back and watch the young linebacker Divine Diablo, who I like. I love his athleticism and shit, but go watch him play a linebacker. No offense, but he's absolutely garbage. His instincts are bad. Every time a play starts, he's always 2 steps behind the play. He's a fucking... 215 pounds who just gets washed around by everyone that puts their hands on him. If he's solid in coverage, but in the run game, he just gets thrown all over the place. He's always washed out of plays. I see plays where he's not even in the play all the time. If he doesn't get to the spot he needs to be to make the play within the shortest amount of time, that dude's just getting washed out of plays. I just don't think he has great instincts, but I watched him in that game against the Chiefs, and he was just so bad against the run. It was just oh, God. Poor guy. But he was originally, I think, a safety and asked to play linebacker or something, so not all the safeties can come up and do that shit all the time like some of the guys in the past. You got to be exceptional, but yeah. Just if you want a little case study of what I'm talking about, how bad dudes can be at linebacker, and how tackling stats can be aren't that impressive to me, and I think can be inflated to some players. Go watch this dude play football. But Vegas, holding out to see if Vegas can right the ship and keep that offense going. Played well against Chiefs offensively. Let's see if they can keep it up and win some football games. 19, the Patriots sit at 2-3, up 3. So the Patriots, to me, nothing's really changed. They beat Detroit. Boo-hoo. Detroit's not good, but they blew them out. A lot of people think they have a quarterback controversy. Bailey Zappi's playing really well. Zappi was a guy who played for a small school. Has really good touch on his throws, accurate guy, has good ball placement, but we'd have to see going forward. Ramondre Stevenson was absolutely fantastic. He's usually fantastic. Very underrated player. Again, this team's going to run the football a lot, try to stay, balance in their pass game, play defense. I still think that this defense is just old and not athletic. And I see the Patriots being no more their ceiling as a 500 team at this point from what they've shown me. So Patriots at 19. So kind of being pushed up again, number 1 by proxy, is the Cleveland Browns sitting at 2-3. Arguably on paper, one of the best rosters in the whole entire NFL. Again, they're just trying to keep this shit afloat until Deshaun Watson comes back. Deshaun Watson comes back with as good as Amari Cooper's playing. They are going to start winning football games, in my opinion. It's going to make this stretch interesting when he comes back. If the Browns can get to stay at around 500-ish until Watson comes back, and if Watson can give them even half of what he's capable of, that's probably 200% better than backups. So, yeah, team stacked everywhere, still playing solid football. Still, Brissett's still keeping the game afloat. I think they lost last week. Let me look at the scores. Yeah, they lost a close game to the Chargers. But, Browns are still playing solid football, man. Just missing that piece. Just missing that quarterback. Ohio table showers. Let's go. Down to Arizona Cardinals. So, Arizona Cardinals, this team is still an enigma in most instances, no matter what we're talking about. Coaching, offense. Had a close game with Philly. And honestly, they shot themselves in the foot against Philly. They were a couple plays away from beating them. They gave the Eagles everything in the kitchen sink, and they missed a field goal. I think they put a backup kicker in. Cardinals still playing tough with teams. I think a big part of the reason why the Cardinals are playing tough is because this is probably one of the more athletic teams in the league. Their linebackers are athletic. Their DBs are athletic. Their defensive linemen are athletic. I don't know. It's a solid football team, that's missing their best offensive piece. And I don't think it's clicking on all cylinders. I do think this team suffers from lack of defensive depth and continuity, efficiency on defense. Especially when D-Hop comes back, this team's going to be able to score a lot of points on people, I still believe. Offensive line's still holding up decently. So they slide back a little bit, but this team is still going to be pushing hard to the end, especially when they get D-Hop back, who is going to come back healthy. He's just off suspension for who knows what the hell he was taking. So I expect this team to be fighting to get into the playoffs at the end. Arizona at 17. 16, Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans bouncing back, baby. What you know about that? A lot of people have Tennessee ranked higher than me, but I just think this team's just a solid team that's really started to optimize and figure out what their role is. I know they are their style of players. I know they beat Washington. Washington's not that great. I thought that Tennessee was just falling by the wayside, man, but they managed to scrape it together, get back to 3-2. You know what they're going to do? They're going to play balanced offense. They're going to play that play action pass and just scheme up a lot of good defensive attacks towards people. This defense, I don't think they're overtly talented on the back end in terms of their corners. They play in a lot of young guys, but I do think they could throw a lot of different defensive looks at teams throughout the course of a game. Not world beaters, but they're definitely one of the, I would say they're one of the better rosters right now. And I think with the guys that they have on their team, this team could definitely still win their division. It's going to probably come down between them and the Jaguars, who, had a step back, but I'm not giving up on them yet. So Tennessee Titans at 32. And then look at that, 15, Jacksonville Jaguars. So Jacksonville Jaguars lost a game that they should have not lost over the weekend. And I mean, you can't make excuses. They're still fucking lost. But they lost to the Texans. They allowed the Texans in their own division to get back into the win column. What is that? Dameon Pierce, kind of went bonkers. Over 100 all-purpose yards. I thought they could use Dameon Pierce in the pass game more. But we're not really talking about them. Jacksonville arguably could arguably be the worst game. Is this their worst performance of the year? I don't know. I only bumped them back one, but yeah, you can't. They were looking so good for a little bit there, and these are the types of games you can't drop, and these are the types of games that young teams drop. It is mostly, let's be honest, on Trevor Lawrence's shoulders. I mean, he threw in the 50s in terms of percentage, 300 yards almost, but he had 2 interceptions, just made some bad decisions with the football. Other than that, the defense held the Texans to 13 points, even though they're not a great offensive team. I do think this game is just, one of those learning curves for Trevor Lawrence. He's played great up until this point. Still was moving the ball and converting a lot of times. Marvin Jones keeps turning back the clock, 7 catches, 104 yards. I still think this team is a good team, and I still think this team can win their division. They're probably going to battle it out with the Titans here down the stretch. But we're almost a third of the way through the season, peeps. Jacksonville at 15. So Miami Dolphins, I could have dropped Miami Dolphins lower, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because they should be getting Tua back. Hopefully they get Tua back. Hopefully he doesn't get any more concussions. I'm actually kind of worried about him going forward. It's like, man, those concussions, man. That was rough seeing him like that. But Miami, what's there to say about Miami? There's not much. I mean, they suffered and got blown out by the Jets because obviously they couldn't spread the pill around to all their players. They're still sitting at 3-2. I couldn't believe the defense gave up all the, points. I mean, that was the other big thing is like you weren't even able to keep up in the game against the Jets because they just got smacked. The Jets were just monsters on the defensive side of the football. Easy to be that good on defense when they played Skylar Thompson. They ran the ball well. Raheem Mostert, who in his mind is the greatest running back ever live. He rushed for 100-something yards, a touchdown. Skylar Thompson was just not good. Inefficient, only 160 yards, threw an interception. But what do you expect out of a young guy? I thought the Dolphins would stay afloat with Teddy. But still, this defense, man, you can't give up 40 points. Zach Wilson was efficient in that game. Got a lot of push on the ground. Their guys through the air made big plays in key moments, got in the end zone. Yeah, this Dolphins defense just didn't show up against this Jets offense. So you couple those two things together, it's a fucking disaster. But I will give them the benefit of the doubt because they should be getting Tua back in a week or two. And I do think this team's talented enough to hold relative in this spot. So Miami dropping 6 points down to 14. New York Giants, baby, 4-1. Up 3 from their previous spot to 13. So the Giants, man, a lot of this to me has a lot to do with coaching and scheme. A lot of people don't have the Giants as high as I have the Giants. It remains to be if it's sustainable. But if you're being honest, this roster is not as good as even a lot of the teams behind it. But there is something to be said. Coaching's still a thing. There's something to be said about coaching. The way their scheming plays up. They're going to Wildcat. They're just pulling out all the stops, playing, for the most part, playing pretty efficient football. Saquon Barkley has had a resurgence. He's not hurt. Playing really well, whether he's catching the ball out of the backfield. Obviously rushing the football. I think he's leading the league in rushing right now. And then defensively, this team's been playing really good defensively. A lot of young, scrappy dudes that come up and fucking make plays on the ball, hit dudes. Daniel Jones had his best game last week. He went 21 of 27, 217 yards. This team's sitting here at 4-1. It's looking like they're going to play consistent defense. It remains to be seen if Daniel Jones can keep up his first week of good play. And then we got to see can Dayball keep this coaching renaissance on point and really just keep out coaching teams. I really think this coaching staff has just been out coaching everyone. They're great on special teams. Their front sevens played really well. Their DBs are underrated, playing really well coming into the season. Definitely improved from last season. The hard part is when we get into these closer games with teams that have better defenses and teams that can pass the ball, can they keep up with some of these teams? This team is not beating people because they can throw the football through the air. It's beating. I'll be honest. This team's had some favorable matchups that matches up to how they actually attack people. I'm interested to see when this team gets their where they're good taken away from them from games. Can they make the adjustments and cultivate other ways of attack to win football games? But they just went out there and beat the pack. This team's humming. Giants at 13. Down 2 more spots. Los Angeles Rams. Again, I don't know what to say about the Rams because they're talented on both sides of the football. 2-3, man. The Rams are 2-3, and I know again, everyone's going, "Oh, the Rams don't win the football. It's where they're losing." Blah blah blah. They have never been good at running the football the past 3 seasons. They won the Super Bowl last year, and they're the 27th best rushing team, and they were average in terms of attempts. This team just doesn't run the football, and they're not good at running the football. Lost to Dallas like I predicted. Kind of bummed. I got that right in my parlay, and I was fucking one win away from fucking winning a parlay. But I really don't know what to say about this Rams team. I mean, their offensive line is just playing like absolute dog shit. Again, the running game's non-existent, but it's not like they utilized it in the past. They only had 38 yards last week. Matthew Stafford just making bad choices with the football. I think a lot of that is due to the fact he's under a lot of pressure. He's thrown 7 interceptions this year. I don't know if that's the league most or not. I know Burrow's thrown 6 or some shit. I'm not sure. It's forcing the defense that, in my opinion, does have some holes on it to hold up to its end of the bargain. And they're still making a lot of plays with Aaron Donald, but I think this defense does really miss an edge presence in Von Miller. It's interesting to see where this team goes from here because I think a lot of people had the Rams beating the Cowboys. I don't know. This team's starting to fall down my power rankings. They're just not clicking on all cylinders right now. They just feel disjointed and a little bit disheveled. You could see a lot of the players, kind of just seem like they're behaving off and don't really seem like they're in it. This team needs to claw and fight back. I mean, in my opinion, the roster's too talented. It's going to be hard if you can't protect your quarterback, though. It looks to me like he's just uncomfortable back there, just making a lot of bad decisions, getting the ball out way too early. And again, I don't know what the sack totals are against this team, but when you get constant pressure, it's not always about getting sacks. A lot of times he's just getting pressured and he's either running and throwing it away, or he's just he's throwing some bad interceptions, man. So it's just interesting to me how a team can be so good last year and then just flip-flop and not be that great. There's still hope for this team. I'm sure they can get it together. They get their offensive woes mixed together. I do think this team suffers from their offensive weapons not being as deep anymore. They're going to 2 guys. Kupp and Higbee, Allen Robinson, they paid him 3 years, 20-something or whatever they paid him, fucking $17 million, $19 million a year. Where the fuck is he? He hasn't shown up. And that's really hurting the offense too. So Los Angeles Rams sitting at 12. +1, Los Angeles Chargers. So the reason why the Chargers are up 1 and they're still sitting on the cusp of being in the top 10 is because this is a passing league. The teams that are passing the ball efficiently tend to be the teams that are winning way more so now over the past 5 years. This team is second in total pure efficiency in terms of passing and in terms of all leading most passing stats. Even though they lost their left tackle, Herbert is the least sacked quarterback in the league. This team still has a lot of weapons. They're deep all over the place. They have one of the best dual threat quarterbacks. I think if this defense could get a little healthier, even though they've lost a lot of guys, and hold. I think it's with the defense is what's going to be their undoing. They got to tighten the bolts up on defense, come out, have a little more energy, and just try to screen, keep teams guessing. You lost your two best defensive players. I still think this team could possibly be a wild card team, but it's going to take, Herbert staying upright and this offensive line holding, because they're going to put points up on the board on people. So, Chargers at 11. Number 10. Hate it all you want. This is just a projection of right now. I know all you guys get hurt when Dallas plays well because I don't know, y'all I don't know. Just like anything else, whether it's politics and shit, there's cultural aspects to the shit bullshit. Everyone out here just fucking hates the Dallas Cowboys because it's fucking Texas and shit. There's undertones of that in our NFL chat. I think it's kind of corny and childish, but they're a really good football team right now. Dallas Cowboys 4-1. They're one of the best defenses in the league right now. They've held every single opponent to a touchdown or less. They have one of the best pass rushes in the league. They have 4 different dudes on their front 7 that are rating in terms of pure pass rush in the 80s or 90s. Their special teams is really good. Their offensive end has been consistent, and they're doing a good job staying balanced because they do have weapons in both passing and in the run game. Offensive line is held up really well, even though they're missing it's their second best offensive lineman at this point. And they're winning with a backup. No matter how you slice it, Dak Prescott is still a more talented guy. Like I think I said last week, I still think style of play matters. I think that Rush is doing a really good job at understanding when he needs to go to what players when they are winning. I'm a firm believer that the Dallas Cowboys have lost a couple playoff games recently, or games to get into the playoffs, because they just didn't attack their opponent right. And I do think they've outplayed a lot of the teams that they've lost to end their season. They had a game where CeeDee Lamb in the first half was just destroying the defensive backs and single-handedly helping them move that ball down the field and get in the end zone, and they barely went to him in the second half and lost a close game. Bad play calling has done this team in. You should be throwing the ball into the fucking end zone in that one Eagles game where Amari Cooper standing on the sideline, and then you dump the ball off to a running back, which is supposed to be with a sign play, into the fucking flat, and you lose when you should throw the ball into the end zone in that situation. Style play matters. He's not better. He's not more talented than Dak, but I do think sometimes Dak shies away from going to the targets that are winning or going to the places that he should be going to. I think he likes to spread the ball around a little bit too much, and that could just be the offense, but all their defensive backs, their average grades have gone up this season through 5 games. Stephon Diggs, in terms of pure pass defense grade, is one of the better guys in the league right now. He's still getting turnovers. And their front 7's just gnarly. They get a lot of pressure. This is going to be an interesting game this weekend against the Eagles. I really think we're going to find out where these two teams. I really think both these teams are going to be playoff teams. I'm thinking, if you look at their projection now, there's a good chance that both these teams are playoff teams. So it's interesting to have them play this early in the year to try to see, if my assumptions are right. You can hate me all you want. It's just an opinion. I think right now, as we stand right now, Dallas is the 10th best team in the league. Go beat them. Cincinnati Bengals, so a lot of people freaking hate this shit too. They're sitting there at number 9, down 2 from 7. This team is one of the only teams ever to lose all the games that they've lost by a fucking field goal or whatever. I don't remember what the fucking stat was. I'm disappointed in this team. But guess what? For all you haters out there, this team can still beat a lot of your teams. So when they play the best of their ability, defense is top 10 defense right now, yielding the lowest completion percentage to quarterbacks in the whole entire league. They're number 1 in that. This team's deep at pretty much every position on defense. I think the only place this defensive lacking is a true number 1 star, a true high-level edge rusher, true lockdown corner. Although Chidobe Awuzie this year and last year has graded out to be one of the better cornerbacks in the league. He's allowed, 40% so far through 5 games, like 42% completion or quarterback rating completion percentage combined or whatever. Right now, this team's woe, and it's what's holding this team back. This team could be undefeated as well if they would. They need to figure out how to layer and attack teams with their weapons. They're taking the deep ball away to Jamar Chase. It doesn't help that T. Higgins has been hurt in some of these games. Having T. Higgins there will help him and Tyler Boyd really attack the middle of the field is where we need to be attacking right now. Defenses are going to sit back and just not give Jamar Chase shit over the top. I do think we need to do a better job at choosing when to run the football. Mixon had his best game of the season last year, but mostly because they knew they could run the ball on the Ravens. Played solid in a losing effort. The Ravens are a top 10 team too. I'm still not worried about this team. I think at the end of this day, I have a feeling, like I said last year, I think this team's going to either... I said they're probably going to win the division and lose out early in the playoffs, but it's looking like this team's going to be a wild card team. I could see the Ravens winning, like I predicted. I thought the Ravens could win the division this year. But it's going to be a tight race. It's going to be tight. I'd like to see them get on a winning streak here instead of flip-flopping. Go on a little run, but they got some tough games ahead. So still, when they play good, still at times one of the best, most explosive teams. Offensive line starting to come on. They're giving up less pressure, less sacks. Hopefully it all starts to click. So Cincinnati down 2-9. Number 8, Green Bay Packers down 4. So I dropped the Green Bay Packers down because it's clearly looking to me that Green Bay will be playing down to the level of their competition like they always do most of the time. And it looks like they don't have enough juice and athleticism and skill, in my opinion, with their skill position players in terms of throwing the ball, to where even if Rodgers plays really well, this team's just not really all that explosive down the field. They don't separate all that well, so they're going to find themselves in close games. Dropped a game to the Giants, which you look at the teams on paper, Green Bay should have won that football game, but I still think they're the better team. I still think they're a top 10 team, but Green Bay, again, they need to tighten it up on defense here, these Green Bay Packers, and they got to figure out their situation in terms of throwing the football down the field. The kids they're just young kids. They're all inconsistent. His best player is Randall Cobb, but he's a slot guy. He's not really pushing the ball down the field much. I still think Green Bay is probably going to be a playoff team, but I do think they could lose the division to the Packers or to the Vikings. So we got Aaron Rodgers. You got the talent on that team. You're still going to win a lot of football games. Green Bay at 8. Speaking of Minnesota, number 7, Minnesota Vikings up 2, sitting at 4-1. So out of the 4-1 teams, Minnesota is probably the weakest 4-1 team. But they're getting great play for the most part out of Kirk Cousins. But like I said last week, he's still kind of what's holding the offense back. He needs to be fucking consistent. Kirk Cousins is a skilled quarterback, a smart quarterback, a good leader. He has to be consistent. What separates the greats from good guys, is consistency. And he can't play bad on Monday Night Football. He can't be bad when this team gets in the playoffs, so they're probably going to make the playoffs. Defense is not helping Kirk out, too. At times, the defense looks really good. At times, the defense looks like they can, blow leads and give points away to teams that they shouldn't. But this team is still one of the best teams in the league, in my opinion. You're always going to be in football games when the team has this strikeability. Love their offensive weapons, whether it's on the ground or through the air. Offensive line projected out to be kind of middle pack of line. Now they're one of the better offensive lines in the league. They're solid on special teams. This Vikings team, to me, when they play the best ability, is a fun watch, and I think they're still a top 10 team. So Minnesota Vikings, they could have dropped that game to folded and dropped that game when they had a little adversity with the Bears, a team they should roll. But they stayed steadfast and win. Vikings 4-1, number 7. Number 6, the Baltimore Ravens sitting at 3-2. Could be the best 3-2 team here. Baltimore. So people don't know a lot of this shit about Baltimore because they don't do a lot of the homework. But Lamar Jackson's playing he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. He's throwing 10 touchdowns in the air, and he's top 5, I think. I think he's like 4th in efficiency from the middle of the pocket. And I think 9 out of those 10 touchdowns have come from him standing within the pocket. Dudes act like the kid can't pass. The dude's passing phenomenally, in my opinion, efficiently from the pocket, with a weapons core that I think is enough to get the job done and fits what he needs, but he still doesn't have a true number one wide receiver. I think if they can get him a true number one wide receiver, this team would be one of the hands down a Super Bowl contending team. You also get his rushing ability. The defense leads the league in takeaways, but I do think the defense is a little leaky. You can't lean on takeaways all the time. That's another one that everyone gets about is the takeaways. I think takeaways don't happen as often as people think, and I think a lot of times takeaways only impact the game more from a situational standpoint. Like a takeaway when you're losing by 30 isn't the same thing as a takeaway when the game's close. And takeaways aren't as sustainable as a lot of the other ways you can impact a game more efficiently. So Lamar Jackson's great. This is a really good roster. I just hope they can stay healthy. I actually respect this team a lot. I've always respected the Ravens a lot. Hope the Bengals can get together and see them at the end of the season. So Ravens at 32. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the reason why Tampa Bay goes up one is because, they are sitting at 3-2, and based off some of the other stuff, I had to kind of slide them up one. This team is 3-2, and they're one of the most injury-riddled teams. They won a game where they literally had most of their wide receivers injured. Tom is still a fucking absolute animal. They have injuries all over the place. Offensive line, wide receiver. They got guys that have been suspended. This team protects Tom even with the linemen out, so you can tell their offensive line is well coached. They're also number one at getting to the quarterback in terms of their sack differential is the best in the league. Defensive personnel is great. This team has depth. Protect Tom, get to the quarterback, and pressure the quarterback more than anyone else. So this team, especially when they get healthier, is still going to be one of the best football teams in the league. And unless your offense could go out there like the Chiefs did the other week and go out there and bang 40 points on them, this is going to be a tough team to beat. So you get to these top handful of teams. The one theme that all these top handful of teams have in common is they can fucking score, and they can score a lot. All these teams have strike abilities. All these teams have good offensive systems. For me, when you get to the playoffs, man, you have those close games where a few defensive plays can decide it, but there's also a lot of games where even the best defenses throughout the year just can't show up. That game with the Chiefs was a shootout. They both went into that game with two of the better defenses in the league, and they just fucking ran up all down the field down on each other. It was a fucking track meet. But this team still, I have them at number 5. Teflon Tom out here, he says, fuck my kids, fuck the divorce, I don't give a fuck. He goes, I'm playing till I'm 50. Tampa at 5. San Francisco 49ers up 1. I really think this team is another team that's been just absolutely ravaged by injuries on both sides of the football, and they're still 3-2. Fewest points allowed in the league defensively, even with a bunch of injuries on defense. They're one of the leaders in sacks and in pressures. I think they might be tied average pressure rate with the Bucks. They're one of the top teams in scoring differential. And then on top of all that, as deep as this team is, as talented this team is, absolutely everywhere. They're even talented at fullback. Jimmy G has played a handful of games where he just hasn't made any mistakes. And, to his credit, I don't care what anyone says. For most of his career, he hasn't been that great. And he's been bad when they need him to be really good. I don't think he's still capable of being really good consistently when it matters. But these past 2 years, in terms of just a well-rounded game and not making as many mistakes, he's played really well the past 2 years. Last year and now this year. Hasn't made any mistakes really throughout these games. This is one of those systems where if you could just play efficient enough at quarterback, it doesn't have to be high-level efficiency, but the playmakers are just so good. This team is just so good on both sides of the ball. If this team had, really high-level quarterback, this team would probably be the best team in the league, in my opinion. I think everyone kind of sleeps on this team because they're more of a depth team. They're not as, star-studded at some spots. I mean, there are some really good players on this team you should know, like Deebo Samuel and Nick Bosa. But I think this team more relies on its overall scheme and talent and coaching as a whole, not just, leaning on star players. I mean, a lot of dudes eat in this offense and eat on this defense. A lot of young defensive backs. I love this team. They're sitting here at 4, and it's a strong 4. San Francisco at 3-2. So Buffalo Bills, and this is where a lot of people are going to get butthurt, because for me, it's not always about your record. So people are going to fucking lose their minds to see this shit. Bills sliding back, 1 only by proxy because of another team shift that I've decided. Bills go down, but they're still top 3 team in the league. They can beat any team in the league when they play the best of their ability. For me, the Bills have gotten to 4-1 with a lot of injuries. They're starting a lot of young players. They still have a lot of depth on this team. What they've been doing is really impressive. Yeah, they don't run the ball a lot, but if you go and look at the numbers, they still can run the ball efficiently. And a lot of people are like, oh, they got in that position because they couldn't run the football and this and that, blah, blah, blah. They had to draw up a play through the air to move the chains in that play where they lost on the last second play. I just think they drew up the wrong fucking play. You're supposed to be getting out of bounds. They ended up having to throw the ball in the middle of the field. I still think this team is one of the best teams in the league, and I do think that this team will still be vying for Super Bowl once they're fully healthy. Their hurt players are slated to come back, and all of their young players have stepped up and made it so this team is a 4-1 football team in a division that's looking more competitive than a lot of people think. Pats are still tough out, playing solid football. Miami gets Tua back soon. The Jets are 3-2. So it's going to get interesting down the stretch here. We'll see what all these other teams got in this division, but this team is just as good as a lot of the other teams. When they play the best of their ability, they could be, at any given week, they could be the best team in the league. Josh Allen's a fucking monster. If you're still fucking acting like Josh Allen ain't shit, gouge your fucking eyeballs out because you don't know anything about football. Dude's still a beast. Buffalo Bills at 3. Oh, people are going to freaking hate me for this. Philadelphia 5-0, the only undefeated team, but I have them sliding back to number 2. So the reason why I have Philadelphia sliding back to number 2 is because I've seen some things out of them recently that makes me think that the Chiefs could probably beat them and probably should beat them if they played head-to-head. The reason why the Bucs and the Chiefs had such a close game was because the Bucs, even with injuries, are very, very efficient and have consistent strikeability when it comes to throwing the football down the football field. And yes, you think to yourself, oh, well, Philadelphia leads the NFL in big plays. Yes, they lead the NFL in big plays with 44 big plays. It's insane. I do think a lot of that is because Jalen Hurts has made the steps that he's made. He's extremely accurate in the short and intermediate levels of the field. And they have the playmakers now to where he can throw the ball into certain places and dudes can go make plays on the ball. I love this team's offensive weaponry. They protect him. They have the fewest turnovers in the league. They're one of the more efficient teams. They're also top 5 in taking the ball away. But that being said, I still think that this defense gives up too much points at times to teams it shouldn't give points up to. A couple plays away from losing to a team who I think they are vastly better than in Arizona. I give a lot of kudos to the team building. The front office made a really good football team. I do think this team is a playoff team. But based off what I seen last week and a couple little trends I seen from them, I do think that if you push the chips into the table right now with as good as these teams are in the top, I think they might not be a Super Bowl team. I think they'll be a playoff team and make a run and win some playoff games, but I think Kansas City's better than this football team, and they're better in areas that matter a lot more, as good as the Eagles have gotten better. I'm not hating on the Eagles. I just think that there's a better team in the league than the Eagles. This team is still absolutely fantastic. They can run the ball efficiently. They can throw the ball efficiently. My only question mark is, will the defense hold enough against the more high-powered offenses? And we still have yet to see Jalen Hurts really be tested and put into these more. He needs to be tested more in the playoffs and in big game scenarios and see, how accurate is he going to be throwing the ball down the field against the better defenses, against the better coaches. We still have to see it. But I still love the player. I think he's improved so much. He's a fucking beast. You can see he's taking football so seriously. I watched him play in like last year, And he was like skinny looking last year. The boys have been putting in work in the friggin' off season, just lifting. Just a true fucking leader with a chip on his shoulder. Love the player. Love their offensive weapons. They have a 3-headed monster, Dallas Goedert, Smith, and with A.J. Brown. Little leaky on defense right now. So if you roll into Kansas City or you roll into Buffalo or you roll into Tampa or vice versa, odds are you're going to have to throw up over 30 points. Against those teams with those defenses, do I think they could do it? It remains to be seen. But this is still a fan-fucking-tastic football team. Eagles at 2. Kansas City Chiefs, the best 4-1 team. Kansas City's absolutely fantastic. They're the best team in terms of situational football. They're the best team in making adjustments. They have the best quarterback in the league. They're doing all the same things they did last year, just with a different coat of paint. You're really starting to see that Patrick Mahomes truly is the best quarterback in the league. He throws the ball all over the place, a lot of layered routes. There's not a pass he can't make. Touch throws, throws down the seam, throws down the sideline. His mobility and his vision is so good when he gets out of the pocket and just makes passes to guys on a rope. Travis Kelce, absolutely unstoppable, even at 33 years old. He only had 4 catches for 4 touchdowns last year. Just an absolute mismatch. None of these linebackers can cover him consistently. More athletic than people give him credit for. Super shifty. Just had a lot of cool touchdown plays in this game Monday night. He had this one where the dude chipped him underneath, then he worked his way back across the offense, caught the ball underneath, and then went in the end zone. Then he had the play where everything broke down. He caught the ball in the back of the end zone over the dude. And I think they have a really good contrast in their wide receiver core. You have Travis Kelce. They have 2 backup tight ends that are playing really well, all of which have gotten the end zone, and all 3 of those guys bring a little something different to the table. In terms of how they attack routes. You have Juju Smith-Schuster, who's not a number 1, but his skill set is more in the trajectory of what you want out of your number 1. He's got enough speed. He can run the whole route tree. He catches everything. He can play along the boundaries. Got a little run after the catch to him. He's the most well-rounded guy. You got McCole Hardman, who's got that 4.3 something speed. You can send him on all the posts and the flag routes, stretch the field, throw screens to him, throw him underneath, slant routes. And then you got Sky Moore, who's got a lot of speed too, but is a pure slot guy. Throw him on bubble stuff, little comeback routes inside, little crossing routes and stuff. You can put him on end arounds. They're just so deep, and the running back core is deep with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Isaiah Pacheco. And I think they should give the ball to Pacheco more. I know Alaire's good, and he's a patient runner, catch ball off backfield, but man, Pacheco runs angry. This offense has got everything in spades. Offensive line's one of the best offensive lines in the league. They're the best team in the league right now in third down conversion rate. They have the most first downs in the NFL. The only bad thing I would say about this defense is at times, even though this front seven's really good, this defense can give up some points. Primarily through the air. They got a lot of young defensive backs. Losing the Honey Badger didn't help at free safety. But I just think that this team is going to play just good enough defense and then still be the best offense in the league, in my opinion, in terms of way they can attack people. They have that high-level efficient strikeability down the field, and they just absolutely eat up the middle of the field with Mahomes' ability to extend those plays and find dudes and his ability to run for first downs when he needs to. I just think right now this is the most well-rounded team in terms of all phases of football, coaching, adjustments, quarterback. Kansas City Chiefs, 4-1. And that's it for my power rankings. I know a lot of people are going to be butthurt by the way I'm moving teams around. I think people expect just because the Eagles are 5-0 that it really means something that much more, but I just think Kansas City is better than them. I think if they played tomorrow, I think Kansas City would beat them. If the Kansas City that's played last week shows up against that team, they will beat that team. Kansas City number 1. Love Patrick Mahomes. I'd like to see my team get back to Super Bowl or win a Super Bowl, but it's hard. And even though I do think my team's going to be a playoff team again this year, I would love to see Kansas City get some more rings because Patrick Mahomes is just a beast. I love Andy Reid. Ideally, I'd like to see a Cowboys versus Bills Super Bowl so that our chat could just melt down, then everyone just fucking hates each other and cries forever and shit. That shit would be funny. I think it's more likely the Bills get to the Super Bowl than the Cowboys, but you never know. I mean, we'll see. Like, everyone likes to sit around and act like there's these eternal trends in the NFL. You know, a handful of quarterbacks have won most of the Super Bowls since me and my friends have been alive. But those guys are starting to leave, and now it's going to be time for new teams to step up. You know, Kansas City, Buffalo, Philly's in the mix. We'll see what Dallas could do here down the stretch. You got the Chargers with Justin Herbert. There's a lot of teams that are on the come up that are going to start being these new mainstay teams, and it's just interesting to see with the longevity of the quarterbacks and how much they've driven teams to success. Since like the second half of my life watching football. It's interesting to see now all these guys that have been great for 2 decades start to retire. Peyton's gone. Tom will be leaving soon. Drew's gone. Phillip Rivers is gone. Ben Roethlisberger's gone. And there's all these new guys coming up. It's Eli Manning's got 2 Super Bowls. He left. It's just so many great players. They're all starting to leave. Soon Aaron Rodgers will be gone. You can make an argument he's the most skilled quarterback ever to play. Best thrower of the football ever. So, yeah, we're ushering in a new era of football, and it's interesting to see it all play out. I think it's a big part of the reason you're seeing a lot of wild variance this year in the season. Yeah, football can be fickle sometimes. I hope you guys enjoyed the power rankings. I'm probably going to throw up a couple videos probably this weekend. I want to do a couple more tier ranking videos. Hopefully, I'm going to be moving my live stream from Twitch over to my platform here on YouTube so I can just have everything in one house. If you want to watch me play games right now on Twitch for the next couple weeks, it's the same as my YouTube name, Mr._NastyTime over on Twitch. Write in the comments, like and subscribe. Let me know what you think about these power rankings. Again, they're just opinions. Drop yours in the chat. Later, nerds.